Hey everyone, Producer Dave here. This went way longer than I thought it was going to go. I thought we were going to get through this in maybe 2 hours, but around an hour and a half into the recording, it occurred to me that we were going to be well over 3 hours. And I just don't put 3-hour anything on the podcast feed. So we've gone ahead and given away the members show as a freebie for anybody who wants to go check it out. Go to eplex.store. On the left-hand side, click members only, and then click feed. And then you'll find freebie. IDT Live 4/10/2024. The post date is April 11th, and you can either download the video there or just listen to the audio of the whole show there. Thanks for checking this out. See everybody on Twitch.
Some people are more bottom than others. Of course, that's just about as insulting as you can possibly get.
I'm white, and I've got everything I need. No one clutches their purses when they're in a room alone with me. And I can drive for any neighborhood I please at any hour, and the police don't do a thing. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I got everything I need. I'm a guy getting paid more than a girl with a degree. And I can walk down the streets after dark, no one wants to rape me. And I can get a girl pregnant and just as easily flee. Just like my straight white male dad did to me. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. I've got a pile of broken mirrors and I'm walking under ladders and I'm spilling tons of salt, but to me that doesn't matter, cause my skin and my gender and my orientation are the best things to have if you live in this nation. I recommend it highly. If I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. Shit's gonna work out for me, cause I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Intellectual Dollar Tree. We do the show live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific right here on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. You can support this project by going to echoplexmedia.com, click the support tab, and I don't know, the best way to do it is just to give me money directly, but there's shirts and shit too, so you can make your own decisions over there. And if you don't have any money, or you're like, I'm not giving that guy any money, tell a friend about the show, and I don't know, maybe they'll come here and fucking swear at me in the chat. It'd be fun. Then my mods will kick them out. I'm Producer Dave, and you can find me on Grindr.
And I'm HK Perrin. You can find me on Mastodon at hperrin at port87.social.
Fantastic. Well, this will be the third episode of the Intellectual Dollar Tree that we do about Scientology or related things to Scientology. If anybody remember, longtime listeners of the show, first one we did was within the first 30 episodes. We watched that interview of David Miscavige. That was really fucking good, because we saw a lot of the same fucking tactics that he uses as the intellectual dark web uses, especially about deflecting criticism and saying, oh, you're just being unfair to me. And the other one we did, people are still mad at me about, so we'll just let people find that on their own. It was about a former Scientologist who went on a show that we watch a lot here on this channel. And yeah, you can find that yourself just by search the word Thetans on my website. You'll be able to find that. And today will be the third time that the Intellectual Dollar Tree has delved into Scientology or the anti-Scientology community. People who watch the channel regularly or who have just been like aware of the work I've been doing lately are probably pretty already know what this is going to be about. My lights know they're fucking possessed. This is about Aaron Smith-Levin. Aaron Smith-Levin is a former Scientologist turned YouTuber. Former member of the Aftermath Foundation, actually a founding member of the Aftermath Foundation, was unceremoniously removed in November. And by unceremoniously, I mean they just put his name at the bottom of the list and said, thanks for all your hard work. That should have been the end of it, but no, Oh, he was mad. And things went pretty potato from there. I encourage everybody listening on the pod and listening live or watching live to check out my 2 articles. You go to the echoplexmedia.com, click the Defamation Times, and you can find an article that I wrote a little over a year ago calling for his removal from the Aftermath Foundation because of his behavior. And then you'll find an article I wrote about a month ago, kind of chronicling what happened starting at the time I wrote that article up until essentially March 1st. The article was initially like 11,000 words or something, some shit. I don't know. We ended up hacking that down to 3,500 words because that was just too long. And there'll be a video essay with a little bit more editorializing and some of the stuff we left out of the article coming up soon. HK, what do you know about, how much do you know about what's going on here?
So I did read the article, but there's a lot of information in that article. I know that the guy, I think he was accused of abuse, right?
Yeah, accused of assaulting a sex partner of his.
Yeah. And that's basically why, he became, it's kind of the start of all this, right?
Well, for me, the start of all this was when he went on, when he had that incident at the bar in Florida where he kept calling that woman a C-word and then her boyfriend whooped his ass. That was the beginning of this saga for me.
That's
right. Because that's not great. Not great. The guy keeps getting punched, by the way. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
And the other thing was he went on the Rick Wiles show. Not a great move. Rick Wiles calls Judaism the synagogue of Satan. Not a great move. He blamed that on, he's like, I don't know. I used to be in a cult. And that's sort of been his reason for everything. We recently kind of picked up on this Andrew Gold guy. You've seen him a bunch, HK. We've been watching him.
Okay.
It's called Heretics, but it might as well just be called Transphobia, the podcast, because that's all it's been about, is how that trans people are bad and not women or whatever it is. And so Aaron went on that show, and I was starting to feel like I got it wrong when I predicted that this Aaron Smith-Levin guy was going to end up in manosphere adjacent, sort of IDW adjacent spaces, claiming that he was canceled. And up until he went on Andrew Gold's show, I was wrong. But the title of this is funny. It says ex-cult member blasts trans theory, DEI, and woke racism. It's so dumb. The title's so dumb and inflammatory. And I caught a little of this on Ian Rafalco's show, but I didn't want to watch the whole thing because I wanted most of it to be fresh. I just popped in at the end kind of to say hi to everybody. And I guess we're just going to watch it. This is probably going to go long. I'm not going to cut the pod off. We'll just put out a longer podcast this week, and Red Light will start a little later than usual because I do want to watch the whole thing. Hopefully my internet holds up because it's been iffy because it's Comcastic. Anyway, we'll just start it. I skipped the intro because the intro is just like, you know how they do where they clip out a bunch of parts of it and put it together. We don't want to watch that. So we'll start it at Andrew Gold's obnoxious logo.
Aaron Smith-Levin, welcome to my show in your home.
Well, this is the inauguration of the SPTV studio, so...
The inauguration of a beautiful friendship.
Welcome to my studio. Welcome to your show.
Thank you. So, Jordan Peterson, what a start. I'm going to get you cancelled today. That's what this is all about. Jordan Peterson told you that woke culture is more dangerous than Scientology. Whether that's actually true, I don't know. But do you see parallels in aspects of the authoritarian left?
Okay, the authoritarian left. Well, I hope you don't mind if I chew on this for a little bit. Because me personally... And this is the episode where you try to get me canceled, and
Yeah, you've both said that now.
A politician. When I think, I generally don't think of the authoritarian left without also thinking about the authoritarian right. And I don't even say that to be wishy-washy. But I know when Jordan Peterson says what he says, he's thinking about the authoritarian left. I personally see the parallels between Scientology and both sides.
Well, let's start with your channel, because we put up a picture on my channel, like we're going to do something together.
And just to be clear, by canceled, they mean people get upset with them. 'Cause they say
Criticism,
terrible
possibly harsh criticism.
Yeah, that's their version of cancellation.
I don't think you're ever truly canceled until you show up on the intellectual Dollar Tree.
I do a lot on Scientology. You were in Scientology. We're going to get into that as well. And they know that I've now got this other channel, Heretics, which is this, where I discuss a lot of stuff that is anti.
No, you don't discuss a lot of stuff. You discuss how icky trans people are. And that's the whole channel, actually.
As well as anti other things or whatever it might be. And how was the reaction from some of the sort of more extreme people?
Yeah, so last night when I put up a photo of the two of us in this studio, because you and I have overlapping audiences that are huge fans of the both of us. I was like, oh, I'm so disappointed that you're going to sit down or spending time with such a hateful bigot such as Andrew Gold. And I'm like, Andrew, like, I've known Andrew, like, well, we're YouTube buddies. Like, we've grown.
It's the shit that fucking Sam Harris was doing for a while. Remember when he's like, this person can't be garbage. They're my friend. you remember this? When people were like, why are you hanging out with the Weinsteins and fucking Dave Rubin and shit? He's like, they're not bad. They're my friends. They seem nice to me. It's a goddamn same thing. No, actually, somebody can be your friend and then have a bigoted YouTube channel. Like, maybe you shouldn't be friends with a person like that, but it's possible for them to be your friend and have a bigoted YouTube channel. I don't know. Like, these things are not, one does not make the other impossible.
Nope. Yeah. If I found out that one of my friends had a bigoted YouTube channel, I would have one fewer friend.
You might have a conversation with them about it first, right? If they were an important friend of yours.
Probably not. No, I would just stop talking to them, period.
The kids call it ghosting.
Yeah, I would ghost them. Most likely.
HK.
I don't know. Maybe ghost. I would tell them off.
You'd be like, hey, we need to do an episode of episode of this show so I can say goodbye to an old friend.
Yeah.
Our channels grew up on YouTube together. You're not a hateful bigot. And I've never had that reaction to anything else I've ever posted on my channel before. Now, that's probably because you're...
As a fellow straight cis white man, I know what a bigot is, and you're definitely not it, other straight cis white man.
So this is weird that he said he's never had this kind of response to like anything else he's done or whatever. The other things he's done includes going on Rick Wiles' show.
There's sort of a theme of anti-woke content. Is that how you would describe it?
Yeah. Not necessarily intentionally, but it's sort of, that's the way it's gone.
Yeah.
So what is that? Is there a sort of feeling of, to me what it is, and let me know if you think the same, it's a feeling of, if you think differently from what my dogma is, and you're right to point out that this is on the far right as well. The reason I cover the left is because I don't know anyone on the far right. All my friends I've grown up with, who I'm obviously trying to annoy now, are either centrist or they're far left, and that's why I do this. It's much more interesting to me. Doing the far right, it's like, yeah, of course, my family are Jewish. There's the Nazis. There's all that stuff. Like, of course, but it just doesn't interest me enough because I want to annoy my friends more. So that kind of, if you're thinking differently, you're out.
Interesting
Is that
take.
something you recognize? And are you fed up with that?
Absolutely and absolutely. What's interesting for me is that because Scientology, my experience with Scientology, when I think about it, I more closely align it with the authoritarian, conservative, moralizing, judging bad behavior. I mean, I got myself into a similar situation recently where the other board members of the Aftermath Foundation voted me off for what they publicly said was not adhering to traditional spiritual values.
Wow. They used that word. They think...
Okay, so this was because they were trying to like not fucking make a big deal out of kicking this guy off. Like I said, the first thing they did was just add him to the bottom of the board of directors page. Just said, hey, thanks for your hard work. And I think they were hoping maybe because the guy has a kind of big YouTube channel that'd just be like, fuck it, and then just move on. And only when he started bitching about it did it force their hand to start saying things. And they tried to play it real soft at the beginning instead of just coming out and being like, well, here's an article this guy we don't even know wrote in March. And a lot happened since then, actually, friendos. Like, I don't even remember them saying he didn't adhere to traditional spiritual values. I mean, I fucking have I stream 6 nights a week, so I wasn't watching every piece of content that happened as this went down. And thankful to people who helped me like track stuff down to report on it. But traditional spiritual, that doesn't, who fucking knows?
Just to fill people in, this is the board that you were on, the Aftermath Foundation.
Well, that Luis Garcia and I created.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you were kicked off because you've been a bit naughty.
Well, if you put it that way, that's the thing is like, in order to consider the behavior naughty, you would have to align yourself with that very conservative right way of thinking of, we look down on this kind of stuff. And so I associate the worst parts of Scientology more with the far right wing than I do with the left wing. For me, what's interesting is seeing the parallels on both sides, which is why, and honestly, this kind of comes back to why on my own channel, I have a no politics rule, is because first of all, it's so inflammatory. The right doesn't want to think it's like the left doesn't want to think it's like the right. Most people don't want to know what your damn political opinions are. And my opinions, whereas everyone has political opinions, I grew up in a cult. Any opinions that I have, I don't have so closely that I go, other people must hear these opinions because I must share them. But everyone, I love talking about all this stuff with my friends and so like everyone has opinions, but I don't talk about them on my channel.
Wait, if this guy's like, I don't like, I can't tell you, I'm not telling you my political opinions. I don't think anybody should know it. How the fuck did me and the media wench clock this guy as a conservative, possibly a reactionary, like 5 years ago?
Yep.
I mean, just because he's not like specifically and intentionally talking about like Democrats and Republicans doesn't mean that people weren't able to kind of clock where he was at politically. And then when he went on the Rick Wiles show, we were like, well, this is not surprising. Or we were like, well, this specifically is surprising because you're going pretty far out. You're going pretty far out there going on Rick Wiles, right? Like that's way, way out there. And so like, I don't understand what he means here. Like hella people like clocked him as being like a reactionary. Like I predicted this was going to be the path in March of last year. And I'm not like some kind of genius, right? Like it's not that it's just that the fucking water I swim in is such that I was able to clock what this guy was up to. And again, the media wench clocked him before I did. She was like, "Oh, that guy's an asshole." She's like, I bet that guy's a fucking MRA or something." And it was so weird that she said that because it was just like a vibe she got, but she couldn't have been the only one. And so like clocking this guy's as being like a like far right politically or whatever, it wasn't hard. And it actually would have been fine, like if those were his politics. It's like, but there's a difference between like what you believe and how you behave. This guy's sort of already trying to conflate these things.
When anyone care about my opinions, I'm fascinated about the kind of interviews that you do on your channel, because the kind of interviews that you do, the audience watches that, and like a lot of people watch that stuff and go, well, I agree with that, but I would never want to say that.
Yeah. And why wouldn't they want to say it? Well,
right, because they don't want to be canceled. They don't want to get the social backlash. And people will say there's no cancel culture, there's accountability culture. I can make arguments on both ways on this. So like, I guess I do get a little, when you ask, do I see similarities between Scientology and the woke left? I do bristle a little bit, because I'm like, well, yeah, I could answer that question, but then people are going to think I'm like hyper targeted or focused on that, when personally I'm not. But I'm like, this is your podcast, this is your show, and I'll answer whatever questions that you have. Yeah. So like, what's interesting to me is to see groups of people, and I guess for the sake of this conversation, we'll say people who identify as being on the far left. Do I have permission to ramble a little bit?
Please ramble.
Okay, good. Because even this thing of calling something woke, it's interesting because woke has become a bad word. And most of the people in my life who use that word use it as a bad word. When I use it, I use it as a bad word.
Gee, I wonder why.
Start out.
God damn it. Oh, no. What the fuck? Like, man. What We're fucking 7 minutes into an hour 20 video. This is gonna be bad. This is gonna be a shit show because not only does this guy, like, he doesn't know shit about any of this, right? He doesn't know shit about any of this, and he's gonna fucking probably play it off. Oh, I was in a cult, like, to pretend he doesn't know shit about it, and then he's gonna make declarative statements about it. And it's like, well, which is it, motherfucker?
Yeah, and I don't want to get into politics, but the radical left woke cancel culture agenda is transing the kids.
Oh man.
Out is a bad word. And so many things progress that way.
Well, Scientology is not supposed to be a bad word. It didn't start out that way. And people, I guess any kind of cult, isn't it? I mean, look, the alt-right don't think that they're bad either. They also started an ideology that they think is right. But if anyone talks about the alt-right, they tend to be talking about it derogatively, whatever that word is.
Derogatorily?
Exactly.
And so in this conversation, in conversations like this, well, I'll just speak for myself. When I refer to something derogatorily as woke, I feel like what I'm really doing is criticizing what I find to be contemptible behavior on the part of people who self-identify as woke. But those people who self-identify don't think they're self-identifying as something bad or harmful. They're thinking of all the good aspects of woke, which is trying to understand different circumstances, what did it say? What does it say? Culture, nurture versus nature. They're talking about the facts of how someone's upbringing and the environment they're raised in and the socioeconomic conditions and different racial biases affect.
Oh, we're going to get a race IQ thing? Are we going to get race IQ in this?
Maybe. He doesn't want to get political, though.
Doesn't want to get political.
But race and IQ.
Decided to make those
I mean, that's just a fact, HK.
things more fair. So there's the positive aspects of what woke was supposed to be, and then there is what is now the contemptible behavior on.
So he's also just wrong about woke. Woke comes out of black culture, and it literally means awake and aware of the power structures that are putting undue burden on black folks. That's what woke meant originally in black culture. He's just wrong. He's just doing he's doing like the I've never met a black person version of it. I've never even talked to a black person on Twitter. That's the version of it he's doing.
Yeah, how much you want to bet he's A, never met anyone who self-identifies as woke, and B, never asked anyone what woke is.
I mean, for me, I would just tell them it's like a shorthand and that I'm actually not the one who gets to decide what it means because it's like a social construct, right? Like, it's like a shorthand for a belief system that I would have never even been using if people didn't start like using it to mean whatever they don't like that's to their left. And usually it's like anti-racist or, pro queer and whatnot. That'd be a great screenshot. We're not going to take that.
Woke. Mm-hmm. So even these terms themselves mean different things to different people when they say them. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah. Not only do I agree, I'm trying to think, okay, but isn't it different, the woke thing because of the righteousness? But then how you just explained the right side, that conservative side, is also very righteous.
Well, like here's a question, though, that maybe he hasn't considered. Why? Why do they mean different things? Why does woke to someone on the right mean anything on the left?
Well, anything.
Why
did
they turn that word into a boogeyman?
Because maybe trying the CRT didn't work, and then remember it was politically correct, and then it was a social justice warrior. I mean, they just keep swapping these terms. They mean the same thing, right? In the 80s, like comedians would be like, "Oh, I'm a politically incorrect comedian," and all that meant was that they said the F word, and I don't mean fuck, like during their set, right? Like,
Yeah, and
if you don't say
DEI as well is like on its way to replacing woke as the right-wing boogeyman.
They're just workshopping all this stuff. It's just a trial and error.
Yep.
It's also very righteous.
Yeah, now the earthquakes are DEI, right? The earthquake was DEI, and the
conservative side
is the ship running into the bridge. That was DEI.
How you just explained the right side, that conservative side, is also very righteous, isn't it? It's like we have the true truth, and so we will kick you out if you don't say it. And I wonder if one of the interesting things is we're here right now in Florida, which is known as a Republican state, I think. Am I right in saying that? Or
Well,
right?
it's at least known for that. I mean, I think the actual constituency is surprisingly 50-50. But if you look at the elected leadership, I think it skews very heavily to the right based on a certain gerrymandering things.
Okay.
Oh shit! He even Whoa, that was pretty good.
Wow.
Listen, you don't gotta hand it to the guy, but that was impressive.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, the population is 50-50, yet everyone who has power is super right wing.
You'll be more used to having like a friend who might be openly centre right or something than I would be in London. This sort of
Probably.
somewhere in London, you know, where I grew up and around all these people studying literature or whatever it is at university who are able to have these luxury beliefs. They're all woke and left wing. I don't know anyone who would say a lot of those things that you'd hear in Florida, like gun control, all those kinds of things. Do you know what I mean? So that's where I'm probably annoyed day by day by people who I see as woke. I don't know anyone who's the other way, whereas you might get annoyed by people who are too far the other way over here. Just give me a minute. I wanted to show you The Psychology of Secrets, My Adventures with Murderers, Cults and Influences. It's basically a true crime.
Oh no, he has a book.
Culty people know it. Studying at,
And it's like almost vaporwave on the front.
He impedes
Is he an incel?
insisting she stay with them. He reeks of...
Wait, why are you reading from your
It's
book?
like Memphis vaperwave, which, like, don't get me wrong, that's an aesthetic. That is cool. I like the cover,
Just have to make sure those friends
but
don't
I'm never gonna buy that book.
even mix of.
Murderers, cults and influencers.
I have a very even mix of friends, and I just have to make sure those friends don't hang out with each other.
Absolutely.
But I want to make sure I'm not totally dancing and avoiding this question, because, well, a moment ago you mentioned the righteousness, the self-righteousness that I think in a lot of the conversations that you hear people attribute to the wokest of the woke. The conservative, and I'm hesitant to sound like I'm painting all conservatives or all Christians with the same brush. It's just kind of how my mind thinks, right or wrong. The super conservative Christians are just as, if not more, righteous. I wish there was a word for conservative wokeism.
I've started saying that because obviously, okay, the channel
just
went
conservative?
A bit it wasn't necessarily.
Yeah, we have a reactionary. I think it would be the word.
Reactionary. Okay, yeah.
Reactionary, probably. Also, I noticed somebody in the chat is like, my friend, what is going on with your mix? Yeah. Who fucking edited? Who did the audio? This wasn't live. Who did the audio on this? Andrew Gold is much louder and like boomier. And they're on the same exact type of microphone. Like an amateur hour over here.
Bad mixing skill.
Necessarily the intention. The intention was to be heretical in any such way. And in my friendship groups, it is heretical to say, hang on.
I can fuck up mine. You want me to turn my mic all the way down?
Such way, and in my friendship groups it is heretical to say, hang on, trans women are not women. That's like the most heretical thing you can say. So that's the thing. However, in doing this, I've discovered the joys or not joys of the other side, of people who are, for example, the gender critical ultras, who agree with me that a trans woman is not actually a woman, but will not entertain any kind of platforming or conversation with a trans person. Anything like it, they always say, hold the line. And this also feels quite cultish to me. And they will immediately excommunicate anybody who doesn't have exactly their opinion. So I call that woke right, or the woke conservative. It's the same. And in that sense, I suppose I'm being a bit maybe giving myself license with what words mean. But I'm going with
Okay, so I would call that ideologically conservative.
Right.
So what they mean by woke is just ideologically leftist? That's what woke means to them?
That's what I'm saying is like this. It doesn't really have to mean anything as long as it can be used as a pejorative to criticize essentially the outgroup, right?
So in that sentence, it meant ideologically leftist, but it'll change before the next sentence.
It's just in group out. It's interesting that they have a former cult person on there, and they're engaged in pedantry about different ways to talk about the out group. I just find that interesting. I don't know. It's something to think about a little bit.
My view is the righteous one.
That's right.
And if you have a different one, you're
That's
out.
right. I'm the mine is the enlightened, educated position, and yours is the ignorant, propaganda held position.
That's it.
Right. There's two things I want to say just in response to what you just said. And this is fun to talk about because it's stuff I would never talk about on my channel.
Yeah.
For my entire life, I've always been no party affiliation. And if someone looks me up right now, they'll see that I'm a registered Republican. 2 years ago, when I ran for Clearwater City Council, I had every intention of just running for no party affiliation. But I expected to, because I considered myself a centrist, and because I considered that I was running mainly on a Scientology centric.
It's so interesting. I'm such a centrist that all of my friends are right wing.
So he claims to have a mix of friends, but that's sort of like, where is his window at? But what I will say is that when he ran, he was primarily running as the anti-Scientology candidate. Another guy, a guy that we interviewed, Mark Bunker, won his race. He lost his most recent race, and it is what it is. You can't win them all. But when he came on the show, we talked about Scientology, but then the media wench and I were actually pretty impressed with the other stuff he was talking about downtown Clearwater. And, Scientology was sort of in the mix, but he was talking about policy. He had ideas about what to do for the city of Clearwater, what to do for business, how to get restaurants into downtown, stuff for entertainment, and just like kind of like dinner table kind of issues for people who live in the city of Clearwater, in addition to his stuff about Scientology, because he actually had thought about the idea that he is now a politician. And so he's like, well, I should have some policy ideas maybe, because he's not a dumb fuck. And this guy's like, first of all, what he was trying to do was ride Mark Bunker's fucking coattails, as far as I could tell. And then secondly, he's like, oh, it's just about Scientology. And that, in conjunction with his very poor behavior during his run for office, meant that he got his ass spanked in that run for office, because there was no there. There's just nothing there. Absolutely not. And then he made two big mistakes. One was getting beat up at that bar after calling that woman the C word over and over again. And then the other one was going on the White Power Hour with Rick Wiles. And Clearwater is a city. It's in the Tampa area. It's going to lean, probably it's going to, maybe not progressive, but it's going to lean like, chat would call it like shit lib, right? It's going to, and so they're not going to vote for that guy, right? They're just not going to vote for him, because he was like sexually harassing this woman and then went on a fucking anti-Semite show. So a lot of people are like, I don't know who else is running. I know who I'm not voting for. And when you're running for office, if all they know about you is that they're not voting for you, you're going to lose bad.
Well, I mean, clearly all the people who didn't vote for him just wanted to cancel him.
That is the ultimate form of cancellation, is losing a local election.
Yeah.
Here in Clearwater, Florida, it's a big deal. I expected to get support from both sides of the aisle, especially since Clearwater City Council elections are nonpartisan by definition. I registered as a Republican when the local Democratic leadership announced they would not be supporting any white candidates.
Wow.
And so you go,
oh, I don't believe this.
They would not be supporting any white candidates?
I don't know.
Was that the phrasing that they used?
I don't know how to fact check this. Did they put out a public statement? Like, was it on a commercial?
Did they just support candidates who happen to not be white? Is that what he's upset about?
That's interesting too, because as far as I know, like I mentioned, Mark Bunker, he ran as a Democrat, I think, with the support of the local Democratic Party, and he looked pretty white to me. So does that whole rest of the whole rest of the city council. Some of them are Democrats. I'm not buying this. I'm not buying this.
Someone might go, oh, you're a registered Republican, you're a racist. I go, I only registered as a Republican because of the racist shit I was hearing from the local Democratic leadership. And I was so pissed off. I'm a very petty guy.
Yeah, I know.
Oftentimes.
I talk about
as
that.
you know.
I tell everyone.
I said, oh, that's your position? Then I'm going to go register with the other party, because chances are those guys are going to like me better anyway.
Did you see that Elon Musk? It was actually from Swipe Right, his Twitter, Colin Wright, and it's this graphic. You may have seen, a lot of people will have seen it, where it's got a picture of someone who's on the right and someone who's on the far left, and then there's you, and you're like left of center, and then that person on the left's got a mouthpiece in the next picture, just saying "you're a bigot" to the guy who's center left, and then the next picture is the guy center left is now center right. Oh. The guy on the left is just upset, and the guy on the right's just laughing at like what's happened here. You've been moved by that madness.
Well, that means you never had any fucking values or like personal integrity in the first place.
Yep.
If somebody to my left He's like, oh, you're a shit lib, or oh, this or that. Like, that's not going to make me go running to like the arms of like Nick Fuentes or trigonometry or whatever, right? I'll just be like, well, I think you're wrong, but I'm not going to fucking argue with you. You can either be a fan of my content or you can not be a fan of my content. There's nothing I can do about that. It's like,
Yeah.
It's so crazy. This is the same story. Everybody tells this story that like, oh, the left was mean to me, and they never say why. Right? The thing, it's like fucking history starts right at the point where the person to their left is calling them an asshole. Nothing happened before that.
Yep.
Like the person to the left just randomly saw you and be like, you must be an asshole. Look at you. You look like an asshole. And it's like, well, that's weird. Then how do you even know what their politics are? History just started a second ago. Like,
Yep.
in fact, history didn't start till tomorrow.
And so, honestly, I just have been too lazy to go back to the DMV and undo my registration because I don't really give a damn about being a registered Republican. Like, I see, and again, I don't mean to be like a wishy-washy fence sitter when I see this. I see craziness on both sides. Now people are going to go, how dare you make what do they call it?
Equivalence.
Yes, how dare you make an equivalence? Guys, I don't talk about politics on my channel because I don't care enough about the various arguments and the recriminations and the finger pointing. I'm not a political guy.
I think one of the nuances to what he's talking about here that a lot of people just kind of like brush over is that, sure, there are crazies on the left and there are crazies on the right. The crazies on the left are, for example, like people who would want to like burn down animal testing facilities, right? Like people who want to do like environmental terrorism, stuff like that. But that segment of the people on the left is fucking tiny compared to the segment on the right who also wants to do terrorism, usually like terrorism against minorities. And like, it's fucking enormous. It's like 25% of like registered Republicans in America say they would be perfectly fine with committing political violence.
Right. So I guess it might just be a matter of like the regular people on the left tend to take out our trash.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not always the case, but sure. Yeah. I don't generally talk about that stuff on this channel because it doesn't interest me that much. The extremism part does, but like trying to like draw like make sort of statements about what's going on either side of wherever we put the post and call the center. I think that generally that's not even that useful. And I don't really talk about that too much. I generally try to avoid it just because there's like a ton of places you can find that, like on YouTube and Twitch and whatever. But I mean, yeah, we have our crazies, but we don't make them the king.
Yep.
Everybody has beliefs. I don't talk about mine because no matter what you say, you're going to offend someone. And my audience comes to me for Scientology. I thought this would be a fun conversation to have because you're a very good friend of mine. We've grown up on YouTube and, people together, and people should be comfortable having conversations like this. Certainly they have conversations like this in their own home. And honestly, it's fun to start having some of these conversations in public. But I've seen people in the dark recesses of the internet be like, oh, he's a Republican. It's like, because the Democrats were being super racist. But it's not like I sit here.
I'm just not buying this fucking story.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's true. So the Republicans have been like considerably like more and more racist over the past few years, like gotten worse and worse about their like obvious racism. Does he not have a problem with that?
So I don't
he's
know.
Cool with racism as long as it's only against blacks.
But I think so. He's just upset about racism, I guess, that he thinks is directed at him personally. Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah, that is what he's saying he's upset about.
I'm having a hard time with this. This reminds me. Remember when Madison Star Moon tried to run for office and then was freaking out in her car because she called herself a peace activist or whatever, and then the person, they're like, oh, you talk a lot about guns and how it's possible you might some of your followers or something are talking about shooting down airplanes and shit. Doesn't sound very peaceful to me. And this is just like this is on that level of like I'm going to run for office, right? I don't know what party Madison Star Moon went to, But I wish they would have just told her that, like, listen, we got enough crazy white ladies on in the Democratic Party. You got to go. That would have been funny, because then she would have called them racist. But I'm just not sure. I'm just highly doubtful that the Democratic Party in any city or any county would just say we're not supporting any white people.
Yeah, I don't think that this has happened.
It's not like I'm sitting here going, the Democrats are the true racists and there's no racism on the Republican side. What happened to me was
I think he might be interpreting like a push for diversity as not supporting white people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they may have had like a diversity program where they tried to get more minority candidates to try and, actually have accurate representation in political offices.
To be fair, Clearwater pretty white.
And to him, that means racism against whites.
This is a lot of speculation about something that I don't think happened.
Okay,
Or
yeah.
I'm
trying to steelman his argument.
It's grossly exaggerated. I think they just declined to support him. Maybe they were already supporting someone else. And then maybe he heard through the grapevine, or like you said, maybe he saw, but I think they probably just declined to support him. And it could have been because he didn't have shit. They were like, oh, here's our here's our platform. And he's like, oh, I'm just running an anti-Scientology campaign. And they're like, well, that's not our platform. It could have been any number of things, but I don't think this happened. So like trying to read the tea leaves about how it happened or why it happened is probably not a good use of time, because I just think he's either lying or embellishing or like filling in a gap in his own understanding with something that he sort of believes to be true about the Democratic Party, right?
Yeah.
That's the most, because it doesn't require a whole lot of assumptions.
Yep.
very specific. I don't necessarily extrapolate that one situation out, although many do. And I like hearing conversations and arguments and debates where people are arguing about this stuff. I don't know. I do find political conversations very entertaining. I find them informative. I find them to be growth opportunities. I just don't have personally held beliefs that I hold so closely that I want to spend any time arguing about them. But now look, you've done a lot
you
of
do, bro.
translated
You've been doing it this whole time. You do.
Well,
He
no,
does.
he's talking. He's talking to somebody who he knows isn't going to challenge him.
Okay.
That's different than arguing, HK.
Okay.
which in my opinion is what people were talking about when they responded to my YouTube post with, oh, he's a bigot. I'm not going to be someone who
I
pretends.
mean, he ran for office, though. It sounds like he does have beliefs that he really cares about that he's willing to argue for. Unless he just gave like the most like phoned in run for office in history.
My guess is that he thought that anti-Scientology sentiment in Clearwater among the non-Scientologists were going to take him into the city council. And that could have happened except for his behavior.
Okay.
Because he got into a fight at a bar while he was collecting signatures to get on the ballot, which generally is, I'm like, you got no up. You started it? Oh, I'm not voting for you.
Only one person I consider who's ever been in my life, who's an openly trans person, who I actually know and am friends with and like. And do you mind if I give her a shout out?
Yeah, please.
Hollywood Aja. She's a TikToker. She's a streamer. She's a Scientology protester. She is the loveliest, kindest, most beautiful soul one of the most I've only even spent a short amount of time with her. I think on TikTok she says post-op trans woman.
Okay.
If you met her, you'd like, this is a woman.
Okay.
I would never ever dream of doing anything
But Andrew Gold wouldn't.
gender her or dead name her. Thank God I don't know what her name used to be or anything like that. And so I go, for me, that's a positive experience with a trans person, and I would want to respect that person and protect her rights and whatever. But I think you could have a whole panel of trans people and go, what statement is more accurate to you? Trans women are trans women, or trans women are women? Like, which statement feels more true to you? Or Are there
now he's like inventing
That's-
now he's like making a fanfic about a panel of trans women, right? Like, get the fuck out of here.
That's also like the dumbest question I've ever heard. Which statement seems more true to you, Dave? Dachshunds are dogs or dachshunds are dachshunds?
Right? It's like, God damn it. Like,
They're fucking both true. Both
And-
equally true. What?
like again, he's like fucking like it's the fucking it's that thought experiment shit, right? Where he's doing like a thought experiment, except it's about real people, but they don't exist. And they probably all agree with him, or at least some of them do. Like,
Yeah.
my fucking God, dude. What the yo, man, I'm really glad he didn't fucking isn't in charge of anything in Clearwater, Florida now. That's all I'm gonna say.
You know, if I had an entire panel of Aaron Smith-Levins, a whole panel of them, and I asked each one which statement is more accurate, Aaron Smith-Levin is racist or an Aaron Smith-Levin is a racist, I think they would all say both are equally accurate.
agendas behind these statements? Because I don't think it should be offensive to say trans women are trans women, trans men are trans men. I mean, isn't that, if you are a trans woman, wouldn't you say,
Yes,
I'm a
that's
trans
not offensive to say. What?
Don't say that about yourself. Trans women are women. Well, no, trans women are trans women. Why should that what is wrong with that? Who came along and decided that was offensive? Now, I feel like I know what the answer.
Literally no one. No one ever has decided that that's offensive.
Who came along and decided that was offensive? Now, I feel like I know what the answer would be. Well, trans women are women doesn't mean they're literally women. It means as a society we should treat them as if they are. And I go, well, then have the statement be trans women should be treated as if they're women. Don't make the statement trans women are women.
Like what?
Let me argue with him here for a second. Trans women are literally women. The definition of women includes trans women.
And he's it's like a distinction without a difference to the thing he's saying, right? Like that's like what they like that's what people want. The thing he described is what people want. It's just like a lot of fucking words. Like why don't like who like we're not gonna spend a lot of time on this, but it's like why do you I thought you don't care about this. Right? Like he spent a good amount of time saying that this isn't something that interests him, but he's got like a fucking like a pseudo nuanced position about it. It's like, well, which is it? Like, are you not interested in this stuff, or are we supposed to take your pseudo nuanced position as something you've thought through in a deep way? Like, because it can't be both.
Why are you trying to weaponize language? And honestly, I'd rather have that conversation with actual trans women, because I feel like you'd get a healthy portion.
Okay,
of it
do it.
I'm totally fine.
Apparently, he only knows one.
What are we fighting about here?
Well, some people do believe they are literally women. So I did a poll on my
Yes,
channel,
I'm one of
and
those
it's something
people.
like 12%, which is relatively low, but it's not insignificant. It's not insignificant given there were like thousands of people voting who genuinely believe there is zero difference, that trans women are women. And then you go, do you really in your mind believe that?
Well, wait, hold on. Pause a second. Zero difference. What does he mean by that? Between trans women and cis women? No one says that.
It's the dumbest, like it's like I've planted my flag on this hill, but there's no hill there. It's just like in the middle of a field, right? Like it's
Yeah. So like, I think what he's confusing here is like the term women it includes both trans women and cis women. So I think what he's saying is, well, some people are saying that trans women are literally women, and what he means when he says the word women there is cis women, and no one believes that. No one believes that trans women are cis women.
you could probably find somebody on Twitter saying it, but they're either shit posting or they're just dumb.
I doubt that anyone literally believes that trans women are cis women.
Sure.
Like they're
But also
They're
like
not.
but being in, like, I think that just by almost meeting them in the place where they're having this discussion is ceding ground to them, if that makes sense.
Well, no, I'm not ceding in ground. I'm saying
HK, HK, I wasn't done.
Oh, okay.
Just even by engaging with what they're saying on in the terms that they're using, I think is ceding ground to them. I just think it is. I don't think that you're ceding ground, that you're intentionally ceding ground or trying to have a compromise position. But I think that engaging this on the terms that they're trying to discuss it is pointless, and it ends up ceding ground.
Okay. But like I'm trying to like understand why he's saying this, because
It's because
to me it's again it's like saying
his definition of woman is your definition of cis woman. That's why.
Yeah. There you go.
Which, as you say,
I don't believe they believe that. Do you believe they believe that?
I think some people haven't thought deeply enough about it. And
I think I've probably thought a lot deeper about it than him. More deeply,
what it is to be free, and how taking freedom away from someone, or giving someone freedom is always taking freedom away from another person, or at least it usually is. And
What?
that's a really
Wait,
difficult
what?
concept.
No, it's not. Excuse me.
There are places where there is like privilege and burden. There are zero sum propositions within privilege and burden, but not always, right? There are, like if you lower taxes on poor people and raise them on rich people, well, you end up collecting the same amount of money. Sure, there's some zero sum game happening there between privilege and burden, the privilege of being rich and the burden of being poor. But that's most of the time it's not the case.
Yeah. And he's saying every time it is the case, and it's like, no, most of the time it's not the case. Only sometimes it is the case.
And I had to think I think quickly, but I had to think of like an example where it would be. And the only thing I could think of was taxation and coming up with the exact same number. Because then you're making it a zero sum game because it's numbers.
Or like if you could like define a right as like, the right to own slaves, quote unquote.
Well,
like,
right, but that's not even a zero sum game, right? That's something else.
Like that would be an example of like, yes, by giving people the right to not be slaves, you're taking away other people's right to own slaves. But like, does he think that that's a bad thing?
Oh, he probably gets.
Would he agree
hold on,
that, yes,
hold on. He may get to that later. Andrew Gold has some takes.
Oh, okay. Maybe he would.
I haven't watched
thing.
all of this. I'm just saying that more broadly, I've watched a lot more of him than you have, because we usually end up watching him during the post game late at night, and he's got some takes.
Okay.
And so when I'm in
I think most people would agree that that is a good thing, to take away people's right to own slaves. That should not be a right at all.
I would like to start the video again. May I start the video again?
Yeah. Really difficult concept for a lot of us to get our heads around. And so when I'm in a place like Argentina, where they're not as far ahead, or I don't know if ahead's the right word, but they haven't gone far down this rabbit hole about, okay, trans women literally are women and so can be in female prisons and female sports teams and things like that. So they are very defensive if you mention trans people, because they want to defend them, and because they're back at that time we were 20 years ago.
Wait, what?
Trans people were being maybe killed or made fun of. They couldn't have friends at school. They were just...
Oh, yes. Famously, 2004, the best time ever for trans people. What the fuck, dude?
Isolated and ostracized, which was horrible. So they're at that point and they're going, what? No. But then you say to them, no, but in the UK, like, they can literally go into women's prisons in some places. Like in Scotland, they're really pushing for that. And then people
that is where they belong.
No. So I wonder
if they
like I was saying,
are a prisoner.
Political ultras with their hold the line, and no one, I think it's just that purity spiral. And you start by saying, okay, trans women are trans women, but then you want to fit in with your group. You've basically said trans women are trans women. You've already now said, I'm not with those centrists and right wing, I'm on the far left woke kind of thing.
What?
Yeah. And they start saying they are literally women. Well, you have to start saying that now.
You and I.
But when he says literal woman, just insert the word cis. That's what he means when he says literal.
Yep.
That's all he means. And he should just say that. He should just say that, like, that's like, that would like that would like clarify here. Because otherwise, the word literal, first of all, people say literally when they mean practically all the time. Or even when they're joking, they say literally. I'm literally dying right now. It's like, no, you're not. Nobody.
Yeah.
No, you're not. Right? Like, the word literal doesn't even have a literal meaning anymore. So here we are.
The definition of the word literal is figurative.
Right?
About this a couple days ago, and I want to bring it up. My thoughts on this right now.
Do you think he knows the word cis?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
And I wish I could have this conversation with an actual trans male or female who truly believes that saying trans women are women or trans women are men is not just an expression of how society should respect that person as an individual, but it's a statement of physical fact or something like biological fact. I would want to say to them,
but this isn't. They're not making a biological statement. These are socially constructed. These are like we're not doing. I'm not. We're not. We've been down this fucking thing a bunch of times. You are not making a biological statement. Most people don't make any biological statements. Most people are pretty ignorant of most things about biology because people are carpenters, plumbers, software engineers, streamers, sound engineers, flight attendants, fucking data entry specialists. Like most people are making very few statements about the field of biology, actually, for reasons that should be obvious.
And you know what? There are biologists on YouTube who have videos about this subject. Maybe he should go look up those videos.
Yeah, but I bet his algorithm would send him to a one Mr. Brett Weinstein.
I don't think he is working as a biologist anymore, right?
Yeah, YouTube doesn't check your employment before it lets you call yourself a biologist, HK.
I mean, he was a biologist a long time ago.
YouTube doesn't check what you're doing.
Okay.
But I was actually born a woman. I was actually a woman when I was born, but I was assigned.
No one's born a woman. You're born a baby.
I want to ask them, when you say I, are you referring to your brain or your spirit? Are you saying you?
Oh, that's some Scientology shit right there. Yo, that's Scientology. I'm
my
not
brain
HK,
or my
that's
spirit?
Scientology. Scientology believes that you are an eternal spirit and that you're just kind of borrowing your body and that your brain is part of your body. That's Scientology right there.
Okay. I mean, to answer his question, my brain. I am my brain. There's no spirit here at all. I am entirely my brain. If you take out my brain and put it into another body and it's somehow able to live, guess what? The me part of me goes with the brain, not the body. No spirit involved there.
I can't believe he just fucking Scientology'd us.
Your soul is female, or are you actually saying that on a biological, neurological, chemical level, you're female? Because if you're saying,
wait, do Thetans have gender?
Fuck if I know.
Ooh, what if Thetans have a bunch of genders? Oh, that's neat.
Brain. That's regression into the problematic gender science of the 40s and 50s, if I'm not mistaken. I'm no historian here. I grew up in a cult. But back when you're saying, that goes back to the type of science of like, no, women are inherently and genetically less than, or like that was, I think that was some of the, please, I mean, fact check me on this. I'm only as good as the information I have, and I grew up in a cult. Okay. Mm-hmm. So like this idea of, men were created and meant to.
You can't cancel me. I grew up in a cult. I'm allowed to say stupid shit.
Of men were created and meant to lead society, and women are meant just to support men, and somehow that's like biologically true. That, to me, that's where you're going back to when you start talking about male brains and female brains.
Is what you're saying then? If a man says no, I'm actually a woman, and they tend to then get longer nails and longer hair and wear makeup and dresses. And I've asked time and time again and said, no, but what apart from that stuff? Because that stuff's quite misogynist. To, like the idea of woman,
what?
Makeup, long hair and long nails, and that's it?
Well, as someone who's just straight
the
white
idea
man,
he's talking about gender expression. You can express your gender however you want to. I have long hair and I identify as a man.
And I believe I've seen you before.
Confuse him?
I believe I've seen you before with your nails painted too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I have painted my nails, and I was still a man with painted nails and long hair.
This is incredibly dumb, but he's also trying to suggest that this is like trying to beaver cleaverize fucking trans women. And I think they might be big fans of Leave It to Beaver. I bet they all really like Alice, actually. I bet Alice is a bit of a queer icon, right? Alice probably loved queer people back in them beaver cleaver days.
This is a question I've always asked myself. I go, wait a second, why is it that when someone's transitioning to the other gender, they do it by adopting all the societal gendered stereotypes that I thought we were supposed to say was just a construct. Now, I know a lot of
Because that's how people identify you as that gender.
Right. And the other thing is, like, because they live in the society that has constructed femininity that way, and they can't go live in some other society that hasn't constructed femininity that way. Like, they only, like, you can only work with the society that you live in.
And also, not all of them do that.
Right. Like, again, but like, this is almost like asking, like, well, if you're a woman, why are you butch? Right. It's like almost the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like asking a lady. It's almost like assuming a woman with short hair is a lesbian, kind of. It's like sort of the same thing.
Yep.
Males having the conversation about the validity of trans, I don't know what you want to call it. What would you even call it? The ideology. And well, I'm certainly not having this conversation so that people think they should refer to us. Well, I think it's helpful to just be open and honest about the thoughts and the questions that people like me or us, but I'll speak for me, have on this thing. Because what has confused me is that when people like me ask the questions or say the things that I'm saying, there's a certain percentage of people that'll go, "You're transphobic," which to me means you hate trans people.
Well, wait a minute. No. They're making statements here. Actually, this has been a series of statements. They may be phrased as questions, but you remember when we talk about the quest statement?
Mm-hmm.
These are quest statements, not questions. You can, if you are ignorant about these issues and you meet a trans person, ask their permission to ask them fucking dumb questions, but then ask them a lot of people would be happy to answer your questions. They might say, "Oh, well, that's dumb, and here's what's going on." Or at the end, they might go, "None of your questions were dumb, and I'm glad we had this conversation, and I'm happy to talk to you some more about this." Because people are actually generally do want to tell you about themselves and their experiences, especially if they know that their experience is different than yours. People are pretty open, actually. You just have to fucking like talk to them and ask them questions. You don't, but like, why do you really think you're a literal woman? That's not really a question. You're making a statement about them.
Yep.
The question could be like, what do you mean when you say trans women are women? Like, what do you mean? I'm trying to, that's an okay question if you're like ignorant or whatever. And the other and the person that you're talking to is willing to have the conversation and has accepted that you have some level of ignorance about this. This is fine. This is fine, baby. I've talked about this only a couple times. When we started podcasting, I saw trans issues starting to come up, and people probably would have thought that because I'm a gay man that I would have known everything about it. Well, nope. I was ignorant, but I certainly had some trans people in my life. I talked to a couple of them, and only one of my questions turned out to be stupid. And then I was like, "Well, that was a dumb question." And they're like, "It's okay. You're my friend." But it turns out that like people are pretty open and willing to talk to you. But like the I don't know. I mean, he's already got a trans friend. Why isn't he asking his trans friend these questions? Oh, she goes to another school.
But also, like, most people can tell if like you're not asking questions sincerely if you're just trying to like insult them. And I feel like a lot of his questions would be just trying to insult them.
Or maybe not insulting necessarily, but trying to reinforce your previously held beliefs, right? By asking the question in like kind of a leading way, that you're trying to lead somebody to a certain kind of answer.
Could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. Now, on the one hand, I hardly know any trans people, but the one person I've had the opportunity to actually get to know, love her to death.
He probably knows more trans people than he thinks.
That I don't know. I'm not under the impression this guy's super popular in Clearwater, Florida, HK.
I mean, I think most people know more trans people than they think.
Okay.
Because like it's...
I'll just take
generally
him
you're not going to lead with,
word that he knows one.
Born...
I'll take him at his word that he knows one, and you can speculate about how many he knows. Also, we have room for both here. That's the two genders. I don't know.
There's nothing about this person you would ever want to not support or love or help or do anything to make her life as great as possible.
Also, this is the one of the good ones argument, which I don't like.
It cannot be wrong just to have questions or thoughts or beliefs or to feel like even I'm going to say transism is somehow being used by some people in a weaponized
Does he mean
way.
Transgenderism?
No, I think he means like racism, but against trans people.
In the culture war. Now that might be a reaction to the fact that the far conservative right does, intolerant.
Well, they're transphobic.
Would be putting them. They are
in the traditional sense.
Yes,
potentially. Not all of them, of course, but some of them might be.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's the traditional
Like you
sense.
can be transphobic without hating trans people.
Right. It's this is a absolute fucking shit show. Like, what does he mean transphobic in the original or traditional sense? I mean, does it just mean didn't bring your dog whistle? I think that's what he means.
The traditional nuclear transphobia.
Right.
Look, I grew up in an age where insulting someone by calling them gay. Can we say the F word? I mean,
don't say.
Okay, like I went in school, grade school.
Oh, he
tell
was
he wanted
about
to.
to say the F word.
He seemed excited about the prospect.
in the
Yeah, he
suburbs
wanted to.
of South Jersey and Philadelphia. We grew up where just throwing around those words as insults was just how we were raised.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that when I say raised, I don't even mean
Yeah, because you were bigoted little kids. Like I too was a bigoted little kid. Because like my bigoted little friends pushed their bigotry onto me, and I absorbed it because I was a dumbass little kid. Like it's fine to call that bigotry.
We grew up where just throwing around those words as insults was just how we were raised.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that when I say raised, I don't even mean by my parents, by the people we went to school with. It was like that was the whole culture. Like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. But
That the culture was homophobic.
yeah, it's difficult.
It was-
Things do change.
That is bigotry. Does he not think that that's bigotry?
It was a much more homophobic culture than we live in now. That's all.
Yeah.
everywhere. They don't change everywhere. There still is a lot of homophobia. And by the way, I just interviewed Andrew Doyle, who is convinced, and this is, some people agree with this and some don't, that a lot of the trans ideology does come from a homophobic place. He believes that a lot of the people, especially children who are transitioning, while some of them are autistic, some of them are children who are looking to be able to control their lives better, and it's like an easy option, a bit like exorcism or religion or something. It's some sort of big thing that can happen. You feel like you've got control over your life. But that a lot of them turn out to be gay, and they're confused at that time. It's a very difficult time in your teenage years, and that it's actually a very homophobic thing to say this person's gay. If we change their body, change their genitals, that they are no longer not.
But this, wait, hold on. Baked into this is the assumption that, like, when I was 15, that I came out to my parents, I was like, I'm gay. And my mom was like, I know, but that's because there were just gay people. Like in my house, it was like a normal thing. I didn't grow up in a homophobic house. And, but nobody, like, that's to assume that happens. And then they're like, well, actually, you might be the other gender. No, I don't think that's anybody's first instinct. I like, especially like parents and like mental health professionals. Like, no, they'll just
also,
be like,
it's a good thing that like puberty blockers exist, and we
right.
don't
But what I'm saying is, hold on, you're further down the path. Coming out saying that you're I'm a boy, I think I like boys or whatever. I don't think mental health professionals, teachers, parents are then saying, well, you must be a girl. And that's baked into what he's saying here, I think. This is different than a teenager or a tween talking to somebody about feeling like they're a different gender or whatever, or being feeling like that they may be a different gender. These are two different things, and I don't think that there's just people. There's no like, I came out as gay. Now your teacher's like, well, no, you got to be trans. Actually, I'm just not sure this is happening, and that assumption is just baked into what he just said.
Yeah, it's a trope that, like, the trans people are just confused trope.
And the other thing is, it's, again, these people are using my identity as a gay person, like, as a prop in their crusade against trans people, right? They're sort of being like, oh, they're just trying to victimize people like you, actually, tell you that you're trans. I'm like, nobody told me that. I mean, I'm 47 years old. Times change. People tell people different things, right? The world is a different place than when I was a teenager. But I'm just very, very sure that teachers aren't telling little gay boys that they must actually just be trans or whatever. That seems, first of all, it seems like a lot of work, right? But it also seems like abusive, and mostly it just seems like it just seems like it's a lot of work that nobody needs to be fucking doing. Like, who's doing this?
Yep.
Like, no, that's not happening.
To the gay stuff, and that is something we know happens in a lot of countries that are quite religious, extremely religious, I believe India and Pakistan, for example, if you are gay, you have a much better chance of survival if you try to change your sex or at least pretend you're a woman. And so you have gay couples where one of them will be the woman, and for all intents and purposes, for appearances, they are the woman in that case. So he is right that at least a percentage of people do it. Because
There is a lot to unpack in that statement, and we're not going to unpack it. Huh.
So one is the assumption that like a city in India is going to be deeply homophobic. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm fairly ignorant about what city life is like in India for a gay person, right? But this also assumes that none of those people are trans. Right?
Yeah.
So it's also like it's like the savages are homophobic. Where have we heard that before? We've oh well, why don't you hate the Muslims in Saudi Arabia, Dave? They'd throw you off of a building. Yeah.
Yep.
What the fuck?
In that case, I imagine they would have to be secretly pretending to be the other gender, because there's no way it's more acceptable in those societies to be trans than
I think
gay.
it is.
Really?
Yeah.
But why do you think that? It's because the other fucking it's because some dumbass guest on your show said so?
Yeah, that is not true.
Oh, we got these stories. He was just said it's from Andrew Doyle, who's like a reactionary. He's like trying to be a Douglas Murray, that very posh white supremacist that we often cover. I know who Andrew Doyle is. He's trying. He's like a Wish.com version of Douglas Murray, or maybe a Temu of Douglas Murray. It means that you order Douglas Murray and nothing shows up, and then it's really hard to get a refund.
That is incredible.
It's something we need to look into more.
That is counterintuitive.
Yeah,
That is incredible.
Really,
it is
he's gay himself,
unable to be believed.
and he really
it's not
feels
true.
that there is a lot of homophobia still, and that trans is a way to eradicate gay people. Well, let's look at an example,
Really?
a practical example of that. If you look at one of the things the UN has tweeted, the UN, trans lesbians are lesbians. They tweeted that out. And it's bizarre, but the reason that's become quite important in the culture is because there are apps.
Why is
where
that
lesbians are
bizarre?
able to find one another. It's not easy to become quite important in the culture is because there are apps where lesbians are able to find one another. It's not easy to find another lesbian, right? Unless you go to a lesbian bar, of course.
Wait, what are you talking about? It's not what it's, dude. I find other lesbians in places like the grocery store. I'm not sure they're lesbians, but you see a woman with like fucking all kind of rainbow shit on her backpack, and you're like, oh, it might be a lesbian. You can find other lesbians. Like, what do you mean you can't find any lesbians? Lesbians probably know better than to hang out with Andrew Gold, is what we're hearing here.
So hold on. So he's upset at trans women because they're taking all the lesbians.
I think he's just mad that they're going on the lesbian apps. But the problem is that like the people who, I don't remember the name of the app, right? But there's for lesbians, there's an app that is, I guess, would be the analog to Grindr, right? Maybe less hookup-y, just because there's nothing hookup-ier than Grindr, no matter who you like to date. But the founders and board of that app are trans inclusive. That's why trans women go there, because the app, they're specifically a trans inclusive app. That's why they use that app. And you ask lesbians over and over and over again about the rights for trans women, and they are overwhelmingly in favor of rights for trans women. That's it.
Like if you are a lesbian and like it is a deal breaker for you, for your partner to have a penis, then like just maybe ask on a second date.
Right. But he's just mad that they're on the app. He's just mad that they're on the app at all. Let's let him finish though. Maybe he'll come to a reasonable conclusion of whatever the fuck he's trying to say here.
But that's, I know from experience as a lesbian. And by the way, your point before that, some people will be watching saying, two white men saying, as soon as someone says that, I have no interest in anything they have to say. As soon as somebody says, because of who these people are, I'm not interested in what they're going to say. I mean, I can accept that, of course, you want people from varying viewpoints, and of course, you want people with experience of different kinds of things. Like, of course, you want that. But if you say, I'm going to dismiss what these people say because of what their skin color is, with no knowledge of you and I and our history and anything else that might be relevant to this case, I can't be bothered.
We know their history, and
But
we
nobody
said that.
Nobody says that about us when we talk about trans issues.
That's true. Yeah.
Wonder why that might be.
Because we're not fucking evil.
the lesbian one, they go through the app and it's 90% men or trans women, as you might call them.
Like, what are you talking about? What does he mean you go through the app and it's 90? Like, what the fuck is he? Did he download the app and just start transvestigating everybody on the fucking app?
Pre-op, and then they take offense if a lesbian doesn't want to have sex with them. It's like they've got a problem with the penis.
Wow. Okay, so now imagine being, I think I got the language right on this. A cis lesbian.
Yeah.
Okay. You're assigned female at birth. You are female. You identify as female, and you're gay. And for a long time, you have been, part of the out group in society, meaning in groups, out groups. Okay. And now you're looking for a partner on dating apps. And would you be called a bigot for going, okay, is this the profile of a person who is also a gay, assigned female at birth, cis lesbian, or is this a trans, what was born as a straight male who is now a gay trans woman, and now you're going to be called a bigot for wanting to know or having a preference?
For wanting to be a lesbian.
No, I've never been. No. I'm on Grindr, and I have a preference for men with penises, and nobody has ever called me a bigot for that.
No one calls you a bigot for having a dating preference.
That's like, you can prefer men with penises or women with vaginas.
To be clear, there are ways to go about it that are bigoted.
Right.
Like if in your bio you say like, by the way, no T slurs up in here, like that's bigoted. But like having a preference is not bigoted.
And the lesbian apps will kick you off for having that in your profile, by the way.
Okay, good.
Lesbian.
And not wanting to be with a trans woman.
Yeah, not only that, but some companies for lesbian apps have removed the filter. So you can't filter for a cis lesbian because they believe that filtering is transphobic.
Okay, interesting. I can't... Okay,
if that's true, I would be against that. I do think that you should be allowed to filter.
Why? I don't think that
on a dating app.
I think that it may not be. It's never been there on Grindr. That filter's never existed on Grindr, so I think that it may just be that the filter's never been there.
Okay,
which is different than removing it, right? But I'm just guessing here because I don't spend a lot of time. I spend as much time on lesbian apps as these two do, and I actually haven't thought about lesbian dating apps in fucking a long time.
But I could also see that filter being abused. Like someone might not want to out themselves as trans on a dating app for fear of like, maybe they're not out publicly, or maybe they don't want the targeted harassment that may invite from transphobic users.
Sure. But I don't trust Andrew Gold, and I don't know what happened here.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's my hope that anyone who considers themselves to be not necessarily a part of our in-group, I don't know, straight white cis males, would listen to this going, maybe these guys will tell us what people like them actually think, or the questions they actually have. I feel like what would be...
But nothing they're saying here is new. This is like boilerplate intellectual Dollar Tree fucking bigoted content about trans people. Like that these two people are like, during this part of the conversation, they're more or less interchangeable with like fucking 70% of the other people we've covered when they've talked about these issues, right? Like you'd swap in any one of these other galaxy brain motherfuckers, and it would be, they might choose different words or whatever, but it would be, the payload would essentially be the same.
Yep.
If we were sitting here telling people how they must think and how they must feel, instead of letting them know, well, this is how people like us think and feel, and the questions we have, and maybe the unresolved issues. Because I got to tell you, no matter how I feel about anything, I feel like I'm also open to, I don't feel like I'm stuck in my beliefs. I feel like I'm open to new information. Well, now, maybe we all tell ourselves that, we pat ourselves on the back, but that is how I feel.
Well, this is the point though, because when did you last find somebody who had different views from you, even if they were extremely different, and said, I'm not going to listen to them anymore. I'm blocking them. You're out, basically, and try to Twitter pile on. Like, I see people with totally different views from me, including on this trans thing, who really believe trans women are women. I find it baffling to understand, but there is nothing in me that thinks I want to excommunicate them. I want them out. I want them blocked. I want no one listening to them. Even Jeremy Corbyn is an example. He's a leader of the Labour Party, he was in the UK, and some people believe he was very anti-Semitic. Other people say he's not. My personal belief is that he's so ideologically captured by the left that naturally led to...
Oh, so the reason they thought he was anti-Semitic is because he wasn't sucking Israel's,
That's just my belief. But other people have different views on it.
He
And
was
I would never
absolutely
say
not anti-Semitic, by the way. He got, like, that's not the only measurement, but a lot of Jews in the UK were supportive of him.
He mustn't run for office. I would never go and throw an egg at him or whatever it might be, or stop him being able to do his thing.
Not throwing in an egg at a
Also understand,
politician is
he
funny.
doesn't think he's anti-Semitic. He's got a different viewpoint. Let's listen. Let's debate. So in Scientology, just because we've gone for half an hour, we've hardly mentioned it,
That's
haven't
okay,
we?
that's
And we
okay.
have to a little bit, because one of the reasons I didn't want
We'll get there.
I didn't want to focus on the beginning, because so much of both of our audiences, even on the new channel, already know your story. They've heard us speak so many times before, so I didn't want to lead with that. But okay, I think that trans women are women. That's a thought terminating cliche. This is something we just have to believe and not think about it too much. I think the equivalent in 1984.
No one is saying you have to believe it and you're not allowed to think about it. You're perfectly allowed to think about it.
You're
I
even allowed
came
to
to
talk-
that conclusion through rational thought.
But you're even allowed to talk about it. It's just what they don't want is for anybody to tell them to go fuck themselves.
Well, I don't think they want anyone disagreeing with them.
That's what I mean. That's
Like,
we said. The
They're
same
sitting
thing.
there like intellectually masturbating each other right now.
So
Like, not actually having a conversation with someone who disagrees with them.
right, because that's yeah. They, to be fair, like as we've seen, most of these people in this sort of IDW or IDW adjacent space don't do so hot when they talk to somebody who's been media trained who disagrees with them. I'm thinking specifically about Matt Dillahunty and Jordan Peterson. What a bloodbath that was.
2 = 5. Were there things in Scientology that are like that? Like, you have to say this statement and you have to believe it.
The infallibility of L. Ron Hubbard is just one of the 1st things that comes to mind.
That's the creator.
Yes. And it's funny because almost everything I'm going to say about this is, to me, obvious with the benefit of hindsight. But at the time, I probably
I do like though that they're like they've got a whole segment to compare parts of the cult that he used to belong to straw men of the opposition.
Of course, it's very Scientology of them.
Yep.
that these things were true or a thing. Like, for example, Scientologists say we don't worship L. Ron Hubbard. Like, there's not a Scientologist in the world who will say, "Oh yeah, we worship L. Ron Hubbard." Of course, because people will go, Scientology calls itself a religion. There's worship in all religions. So people assume,
Not really.
well, if he's the guy that created your religion, you must worship him. And a Scientologist would bristle at that. What? No, that's not that kind of religion. We don't worship L. Ron Hubbard. It wasn't until I went to a meeting of Baptist ministers who were having a meeting for the purpose of discussing Scientology because they see it as satanic, and I saw how they treated the Bible, because I didn't grow up in church, a real church. I saw how they treated the Bible. I saw how they quoted from it. I saw how they knew it verse and paragraph and page. They quoted it just like we quoted L. Ron Hubbard, and they saw it as the infallible source of truth. And I said, oh, this was after I was already out of Scientology for years. I said, oh shit, we do worship L. Ron Hubbard. Or even if we think we don't, we treat his word the way these guys treat the word of God. And we convinced ourselves we don't worship this guy. Like, we brainwashed ourselves to believe.
So what he just kind of glossed over is that he went to a Baptist thing where they were saying Scientology was satanic. To do what? To learn something? Like, that's a little weird. I mean, I fucking hate Scientology, but I don't want to go listen to some Baptist preacher tell me it's Satan. Like, what a waste of time.
But like, also to be clear, that's what they think about, like what they call basic biology, meaning like balls equals male, ovaries equals female. Like that's actually what they think.
Right.
You can't argue with that. You can't believe anything other than, if you have balls, you must be a man, and if you have ovaries, you must be a woman.
To be fair, again, Andrew has been leaning on that a lot harder than than Aaron has in this.
Okay.
Worship L. Ron Hubbard when it's not true. The only way a Scientologist could say we don't worship L. Ron Hubbard is by saying we don't pray to him. Scientologists don't pray. And if you have to pray to someone to worship them, then fine. You don't worship L. Ron Hubbard. But in every other respect of that word, you treat L. Ron Hubbard exactly like evangelicals treat Jesus and God. Full stop. So, your original question was there one of these thought-stopping cliches? And I realized I didn't respond with an actual cliche. There's what would Ron do?
Okay, is there?
Yes. And when I didn't know that what would Jesus do was the thing.
Oh, wow.
So when I first in the real world saw a bumper sticker that said, what would Jesus do? I kid you not. My thought was, they stole our thing.
I can't believe that. That's great. That's great. Well, okay. Another one is, I suppose, I think some people I've spoken to who were or are in Scientology appear to worship Tom Cruise. I know you're not supposed to in Scientology. And I think, I had another one I was just thinking of. Oh, yeah. Well, Tom Cruise's assertion that you can be a Scientologist and a Christian and a Jew. And it's just, you're supposed to believe that. And it's just not true.
Scientologists actually aren't expected to believe that. All Scientologists know that's not true. But they do know it's what you're supposed to say.
Interesting.
All Scientologists know that's not true. The only way they could maybe trick themselves into thinking that is they don't know what it actually means to call yourself a Christian. Like some ignorant Scientologist who grew up in a cult and has not had proper education, particularly in Christianity, might think that as long as you believe in the 10 Commandments, you can call yourself a Christian. Okay, well, there's...
well, I actually don't give a fuck. If somebody calls themselves a Christian, I just believe them. I don't know what else you're supposed to do.
If you believe in the 10 Commandments, the first one is you shall have no other God than the Christian God. Or,
check me on this.
Well, the Jewish God, who same God as the Christian God.
In the 10 Commandments that are particularly objectionable. Is that wrong? Is there stuff there that's problematic and hasn't aged well?
Shall I look them up?
Thou
you keep
shalt
talking.
not kill. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Thou shalt not... I don't know. Is there anything of...
You keep talking while I look up the 10 Commandments and find...
Yes, the first two are about believing in the Christian God.
Right. Yeah, I don't know them exactly, but I know
He doesn't
that
know very much about Christianity.
I know the first two shows me that God is like a little bit of a jealous bitch. That's what he tells me. A little bit needy.
Just out there that are so ignorant of what it actually means to be a Christian that somehow they believe that if you love thy neighbor, it's okay to call yourself a Christian. And you go, no, do you believe that Jesus Christ was the Son of God and died on the cross for your sins? And that there's a heaven and that you get salvaged through accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior and you go to heaven when you die.
But there are tons of Christians who don't literally believe that was a historical event, and that's fine too. If they tell me they're a Christian, I just fucking believe them because I don't care that much, actually.
Yeah, like that's fine. You can be a Christian without believing. You could be a Christian without even believing Christ was real.
Right.
Like if you follow the teachings of Christ, as laid out in the Bible, I would call you a Christian.
If you tell me you're a Christian, I will just believe you.
Yeah.
Because it saves a lot of time on a stupid conversation that you could avoid.
I will give it to him that there's nothing in the 10 Commandments about Jesus Christ.
Then I'm sorry, you're not a Christian. You're not a Christian.
No.
You can identify as a Christian,
but that means nothing.
but you're wrong.
Well, this goes back to my point that identifying
Don't do it. No.
Identifying as a thing does not a thing make of you. Okay, well, you
But on
shall not
Christianity,
make
yes, it does. Because how else do you know?
You shall not take
How
the
else am
name
I
of the
supposed
Lord
to fucking know?
in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy.
Okay, only the popular ones. I only know the popular ones.
That's the top 10. That's the 10
Thou
commandments.
shalt not. Does it? Thou shalt not murder.
That's 6.
Oh.
Adultery 7. Shouldn't steal.
Wait, did he?
That's 8. That's
Did he
really
read the
good.
first two?
Is love thy neighbor even on the 10 Commandments, or is that just a Christian?
That is
thing?
not.
You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. So don't lie about your neighbor.
Love thy neighbor comes from somewhere. I know it does.
But
comes
that's
from
that's a really good one. You should not bear false
Jesus
witness against your neighbor, because that speaks to cancel culture, I think. If I think of any kind of authoritarian government, on the right it could be the Nazis, on the left it could be the Stasi. I'm not just having a go at Germans today, but
that is a
lovely
a
Germans,
New
they good at
Testament
all
thing.
the stuff.
You did live in Germany, so you can talk about it.
I did, and just this morning or yesterday I saw there was a great Twitter thing of a German guy who goes around cities finding people who have committed parking offences and informing the government. And that's like his thing. And he's the most German guy ever. And he's like, yeah, I just think that...
Wait, this is real?
This is a real thing.
Oh.
It's a real thing. He goes around and people were like questioning him on the news, like, oh, so why do you do this? He's like, well, people must... The law is important and we must follow the law. This is very important for me.
I'm just following orders.
There you go.
Whoa, dude.
But that, the Stasi...
How do you know that German guy's not a troll?
Used to like put pornography in people's letterboxes, like hanging out. So because pornography was like the thing that was the worst thing you could be accused of doing, which is interesting because I think that's where the left and the right would agree. Like, oh, you've been naughty and watched porn and things like that. You're bad.
Would
Wait,
the
what?
far left feel that way
That's
today?
just the Stasi, the far left.
Oh.
I know what you're saying. There are parts of the left today, the intersectional postmodernist left, who would be like, yes, all the more, have as much of that as you can, get it into your veins, and
Yeah, if you want to, yeah.
things to it and whatever.
I don't
that-
think you should inject porn into your veins.
Postmodernism is when too much porn.
Very keen on like showing off that other people.
Like,
have done it.
there's only a few things you should inject into your veins, and porn is not one
Get
of
it
them.
into your veins and make it weird and add alphabet things to it and whatever. But
Make it weird and add alphabet
boy.
things to it. Oh, okay. All right, dude.
That's a very weird way of being homophobic and or transphobic.
Right, yeah. But add the alphabet things to it, everybody. Just add the alphabet things to it. And he doesn't mean alphabet soup porn, which I'm sure it exists. I forget, was it Rule 37?
very keen on like showing off that other people had done that. They even used to get loads of their people who worked for them to go and watch the premiere of a new big pornography film.
Why?
Together, so they could later use that against them if they ever spoke out. So the Stasi are a great comparison to Scientology.
Yeah.
And I've written a whole thing comparing the Stasi to Scientology in my new book, The Psychology of Secrets.
Wait.
But that's you shall not bear false witness.
It was used against you that you watched porn?
No, he if you were I don't know if you were listening or just thinking of the next thing you were going to say or whatever, but he said that they would have you do one.
Oh, okay. I
for
missed that
blackmail.
part.
Sort of like what people believe, what like some conspiracy theorists believe Jeff Epstein was up to, that he was like, having Barack Obama. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. But
Okay.
But yeah, they'd film you. Yeah, they would. I mean, that's fucking like spies do that all the time. Like they'll film,
Yeah.
They try to get secrets from people through sex, either through extortion or just it's a tactic called beautiful peopling someone, where if you're maybe conventionally unattractive, they'll send a spy after you who is conventionally very attractive, and then maybe you'll tell them things that you might not have told someone else.
Because they all just everybody started just reporting on their neighbors. Most amazing thing. Is that another bit? I mean, that's part of woke culture. That's part of the far right. Is that part of Scientology?
A really good point. I mean, reporting on your neighbors is one of the most important parts of Scientology culture.
There you go.
I mean, one of the most important policy letters in Scientology is called knowledge reports. And there's another one called ethics chits that gives like 50 different types of chits that all members are expected to turn in to the organization on each other. And it's made clear that if it is found that someone was guilty of committing an offense and you knew about it and hadn't reported it, you are guilty of the same crime the other person is guilty of. You got, spouses reporting on spouses. Spouses in Scientology cannot speak privately with each other and expect each other's to keep their secrets. I mean, it is... It's one of the craziest things in hindsight to think that we as Scientologists, now former Scientologists, all were involved in and thought that was ethical, moral, virtuous behavior, as opposed to some of the most degenerate, contemptible, low-life way of existing, is that you're going to turn in people you love to an organization for the greater good, You could say so much about how the greater good is used to justify pretty much anything. And I do think that both sides of the extremist spectrum probably feel that they're all doing it for the greater good.
Of course.
Don't you think?
Did you ever turn people in, close friends?
I was the best at it.
I was so sure.
Best at it.
I was sure you were about to just absolve yourself of responsibility because you made a face that I thought was like, I was the one who didn't do it.
No, I wrote particularly. I was the best at it for my whole Scientology career, but for the 4 years that I was in the Sea Org in Los Angeles, I have to this day copies of every single one of the maybe 500 reports that I wrote on my juniors, my seniors, my whatever you call people who are the same as you. I don't know.
Like cohorts.
I don't know. My vocabulary is failing me. Because I joined the Sea Org with a laptop and was allowed to use that laptop as my work computer for the entire time. And I left the Sea Org with that laptop, and I have every report, dispatch, request, weekly financial planning. I have everything. And if I was focused and disciplined enough, I would make it a whole video series. I've done a few videos just reading the reports that I wrote on other Sea Org members.
Incredible.
You probably use their fucking names too.
I was speaking to someone recently, a journalist whose father was from like a Soviet country or somewhere there or thereabouts, and they had these kinds of communist.
I guess it's not surprising to know that he was a piece of shit when he was a Scientologist too.
And you can now go back and find all the reports that were written about you at the time. You can do this with the Stasi in Germany as well. And he didn't want to go back to find out which of his neighbors and friends had reported on him, because it would have changed. It would have
crushed him?
Yeah, and also because he understands that they had to do it, or they were brainwashed to do it. So
I thought we were going to run this whole thing during the podcast. What I'm going to do, actually, because this podcast will be well over 3 hours if we do that. So we're going to do the other thing. We're going to do it the other way. We're going to give away the patrons, the member show for everyone. The member show will be available for free for everyone, but I'm not interested in sticking a 3.5 hour MP3 onto fucking Spotify. We just spend too much time making fun of others who do that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to finish this, but we're going to finish this during red light. Anybody new, by the way, red light is, we changed the color of the lighting here, changed the color of our the contents of our beverages. Things are a little looser. We talked to chat a little bit more. We'll be able to maybe take questions from chat or interact with chat. And anybody listening to the pod who has never experienced red light, make sure you're following us here at twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. I'm going to go ahead and play a song, because of course we're going to play a song. Because this is about space alien cult. Maybe we'll play a song about UFOs. This is a song called Talk About UFOs by Offworld. And we'll be back with Red Light, everybody. And podcast listeners, patreon.com/Echoplex. We can give it away free there. While you're there, consider becoming a member or become a member at eplex.store. Soon, Fourth Wall will also allow us to make our members' posts public. They just haven't done that yet. Yeah. HK and I are going to have a drink. We're probably going to smoke some fucking... I'm not high enough for this shit. So, yeah. Anybody who's new to the pod because of the particular subject matter, welcome. And we'll see everybody on the flip side in Red Light. This is a song by Offworld, and it's Talk About UFOs. See everybody on the flip side.
About UFOs. He was going to Roswell, and as far as I know, he got in touch with the sheriff's department. They in turn called the Air Force. I know,